Hey gang, it is March 7th, 2018, and I decided I needed to do something with the 68 coupe. For those of you that have been following along my videos, I've been doing a lot of work on the Brooklyn Pony, and I'm trying to resolve some issues with that, with the suspension, tires and wheels, and a few different things that need to be addressed. And I feel like I'm just kind of stagnated right now. So I need to get my, I don't know, batteries recharged, I guess is the way to look at it. And I've got pieces for the 68 already sitting here. I've got quarter panels and a tail panel. And I've shown these before. These are the quarters that are from Mustangs Unlimited. Here's the tail panel, again for Mustangs Unlimited. There's the part number if you can see it. But those of you that have followed along know, all the work that I've done to this car, and it's just been sitting. I did strip all these quarters, or strip all the paint off the quarters, and found some things I didn't like, namely all this Bondo up here, and they had overlapped the quarter, and the corner here is just really just round, so all that was shaped with Bondo. There is a pile of Bondo down here. I can show you on the other side more specifically. They had just shaped these quarter panels were probably put on here 15-20 years ago, I don't know, but they don't have the correct shape at all, and I'll get into that later and show you what I'm talking about. But well, you can see the rust come through the tail panel. But anyway, I feel like I just need to get my batteries going again. If you followed along in this car, you know that I put floor pans in it. I put in torque boxes, fresh engine. It's converted to disc brakes. I've added power steering, and it was an original AC car, and I pulled out the original box and I'm converting it to vintage air. So I've done some other work to it. I've cleaned up all the rust on the roof and epoxied it and put some filler on the pitted areas. That's just sitting. But I just need to get my energy back, get my mojo back. And in that process, I decided I need to do some sheet metal work. Nothing gets my mind better than doing some welding. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to start cutting this apart and show you how I'm going to do it. Now to start with, I am going to get it up in the air and get some jack stands under it, pull the wheels off so that everything is out of the way and I have more access to the inner wheel houses and everything else in that area. So as you can see, I do have it on jack stands, and I did put a little piece of cardboard on top of the perch so as not to damage any of the paint on the differential housing. I wanted to show you a couple things. Another reason I don't like this quarter panel on these, but it's on this car, is this shape is all wrong right here. I hope you can see that. There's a depression there which would not be found on a 68. Maybe you can see that. You can see it rolls in pretty good right there. And this shape is just wrong. It bulges out in the middle. That's just not right. The lines up here again aren't nice at all. And if you look at the 68 quarter, this is dished in like it should be. There's no recesses in this area. The shape is better up on top. And then, as I was pointing out back here, the way this is shaped is all wrong. Even down here, the way this rolls underneath, there's no recess. it just drops off really bad. I mean, it's just radiuses back into that bottom. If you look at this quarter, if I can, there you can get this recess there, more of a sharper edge and relief. And you can compare that to this one as well. See, this is just a big flat panel that's rolled over what was left of the old quarter. And then underneath here, this kicks up. So if you're ever looking at a car and at least want to get the idea that maybe it's original or not, you can at least tell if it has original style quarters to some respect by having this kick up here instead of, like I said, this rounded ugly thing. So I'm pretty happy with these quarters. They got a nice shape to them, and I'm going to see if I can't get at least one of these off today. We'll see how that goes. Now I will say at this point I'm not too worried about saving this quarter panel. There really is no way to gently take it apart, and I wanted to experiment anyway. So I have my Makita 4-inch grinder and some thin cutting wheels, and I want to see how it goes using that. I've never tried that before. I've always used air tools. So ideally I'm going to cut it somewhere up in here into this radius, and then probably on the back side of this edge, because I don't want to get into the B-pillar. And we'll see how it goes from there, whether I need, what happens down at the bottom, and again where it's may or may not be attached correctly to the wheelhouse. So I'll cut it back here, and all this is going to come out anyway, but I just need smaller pieces to work with. And then I will be salvaging this corner brace. At least I hope I can. I see it's been filled over, so we'll see how that goes. But I do want to salvage that, and the rest of this I'm not too worried about. So I'm going to start cutting. Obviously, hearing protection, safety glasses, dust mask. That's not bad for one disc. I'm going to get another one. I should point out that these discs are 0.045, 45 thousandths thick, and I believe I got these from Harbor Freight, United Abrasives Inc., but I don't have the packaging, but I'm pretty sure I got these from Harbor Freight, so pretty good deal. Well, let's have a look. I think it's attached pretty good to the wheelhouse. So I'll have to I'll cut up here somewhere and try to separate this. I thought maybe I could just save these arches. I know that one of the viewers, fans, Nathan, he needs a set of these, but I don't think I'm going to be able to save these. They're too well attached. Thought I was going to be able to give them to him, but I guess not. So, everything else should come loose once I get that apart. Now that I have the main section, or the biggest part of the quarter panel cut off, I can show you how they had attached it. You can see the welds. This is the original panel here, and then they just overlapped it, which we already knew that, but this gives you an idea what it looks like on the inside. And again, on the outside, here's the welds. So at this point, I will take a sanding disc on a air grinder and expose any welds here, and just there's a blooper. At this point, I will take my 90 grinder with a 80 grit or rough grit sanding disc and expose any welds on this front edge, and then separate those. Shouldn't take much. Down here, I'll probably try using a chisel and just see if I can pop this loose. I don't think there's much holding it in either. And then you can also see that the outer wheelhouse was replaced. They didn't fully weld all of the welds. I don't know what that is, some sort of rivet. I may have to go back over some of this, because those are just not good welds. And you know how I am. I don't like to leave stuff. So beyond that, there is a patch. Now let me show you. Let me get this out of the way. I was saying there is a patch of this extension. Not sure how good it is. And then this was actually something I had welded in from the other side as a filler, because the bottom half was rusted off. And so initially, when I thought I was just going to leave everything alone, as far as the quarter panel, I welded that in, and now I have to rethink this a little bit. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do. I don't want to replace this whole panel. I may see about getting another extension and cutting it off and welding it in. Really don't want to dig into all of that upper area. So I'll continue separating things and see how far I can get today yet. Looks like it's hanging on pretty good. I'll have to go to plan B. We'll see if this works. Okay, I think you get the idea here. I'm just pushing the front edge away and then getting that cutting wheel in there. And these were welded a little more solid than I expected, so I'll just continue on down and get the rest of it separated. Well, I managed to get the rest of those pieces off. You can see the pile down there. Still have more to do here on this back corner. There was a few good welds on the outer wheelhouse. I have to decide what I want to do with this right now. It's not in as good a condition as I had hoped it would be, so I'll have to debate that a little bit with myself. Otherwise, everything else looks okay. I got all the metal cleaned off that edge, so that's fine. Still have to mess with this piece up here yet. I'm not even sure how well that's attached at this point. Back here, I'm gonna have to have some arguments with myself because I like having this number stamped in here, and this edge is in really good shape along with this corner piece. And I'm actually considering cutting the new quarter to fit right on that edge, and that way I don't have to separate any of this, which appears to be nice and solid. I don't have to mess with this gap or this length. I will have to continue removing the tail panel, which may not be that big a deal at this point because it can be rolled up under this piece. It depends how this separates over here. I don't know what they've done there, if that's all weld, I don't know, but I can cut right on that edge and get this piece out. This piece will come off, but as I'm saying, I may just try to leave this alone and leave this piece in there because it's got that stamping in there. At least it would look more original that way. So I'll let you know what I decide. I'm gonna have to debate on that a little bit. I think at this point I may have gotten a little bit ahead of myself when I started cutting everything loose. What I should have done first was identify the spot welds and drill them ahead of time. It didn't really hurt anything. I just took a block of wood and held it up underneath and then drilled the spot welds, and it's separating just fine. You can see it's, maybe you can see, hard to get the camera in there. There you can see it is separating. So I'll continue to separate those welds, see if I can't get this all the way apart, getting what's left of this piece. It's hanging down right here. That's part of the tail panel. Getting that off and cleaning up what's there. And I'll try to show you that when I get it all apart. But for now, I'm just finding these welds. Like there's one right there. And I'll drill those out and just continue separating. Well, I've made a big mess now. I got the bulk of the tail panel off. What I did over here was just cut the inner section out because I'm not ready to take this quarter off yet. I want to make sure everything's going to fit first on the other side. So I still need to separate this piece of metal out from underneath this corner brace. I still need to remove the rest of the tail panel from this support bracket. I did get this all cleaned up. All that's removed from the back side. And I'll have to do some, I don't know, test fits to see exactly how I want to use this, if I want to use this. I don't know yet. I may cut this straight with the rest of this cut here and just make that flow into the quarter panel. I haven't decided yet, so I'll let you know when I get to that point. I still need to remove what's left of the quarter down there, and I'm leaning towards replacing the outer wheel houses again. I don't know if I'll do it the way they've done it. I'll get some new ones and then work on it from there, because normally I don't like to get way up inside because it's so hard to separate and then re-weld. Most of the time I'll trim this around this perimeter and section that out and make a new one fit. So it's a big mess, but this makes me feel better. I like making messes, and hopefully I can make some more progress on this very soon. Well, I did make the decision to replace the outer wheelhouse. I drove up to Mustangs Unlimited and picked up the driver's side. They're shipping me the passenger side since they didn't have it on hand. But there's the part number. I guess you can read that. And I also bought these drop pan or trunk pan extensions rather than cut out this whole panel, which is intact. There's no reason to cut into that or remove that whole panel. As I said before, this has this patch, and so they make these pieces has basically a 1-inch 90-degree turn on it. And what I'll likely do is cut below that line and then fit this panel up to, this new panel, or what's left of this panel, I should say. I'll trim this one to fit. Now, there are some variations here. This panel, there's a patch here, and that's a patch that I had put in. This is all pieces and parts that are pieced together. This isn't probably the best fitment. As I pointed out before, they had sort of welded it back in place, and up inside, probably can't see it, but there's no welds at all on the inside of that, which is again why I don't like doing it that way, because you can't get in there very well. See if I can zoom in a little bit. Yeah, there's no welds at all in that upper section. So I'll remedy that. And again, here's some sort of a pop rivet. Really poor welds here, just barely making contact. Nothing filled there. So I'm going to remove the outer wheelhouse entirely and work on making this piece fit. And from there, as I said before, I'm going to trim off the rest of this material from the tail panel up here on this bracket. And then I also need to remove what's left of the material on this lower surface where I cut it off, just so I can get it to fit correctly. And I'll go from there. So more cutting to go. Oh, I did want to point out, I talked about these discs that I had bought at like Harbor Freight. Apparently they don't have these anymore, and that's why they were discounted. So I got the last few that they had, and I do have my Ford half-inch grinder, and so I picked up these, another Harbor Freight product. The These were on sale for $6, and I think there's about 10. I think it's 10 in the pack. Yeah, 10 pack. So I will use that to do some more big cuts and try to get things moving. I should point out, here's the part number for the left hand driver's side panel, and here's the part number for the right hand passenger side panel. Just thought you might want to know that. Now, as you can see, I was a little aggressive with this, but it's been previously welded before, and so even though these are bent out a little bit, this will handle dolly back real easy. The metal is very soft. But what I plan to do, I have all the welds broke loose on this perimeter. I'm going to take a grinding disc now on my 4.5 inch grinder, and I'm going to grind down the surfaces of any of these welds. I don't want to mess up the inner wheelhouse, so I'm just going to grind the face off of these welds and just work this out piece by piece. That's not even good seam sealer. That's window caulk. Yeah. And if you're wondering, this is just a piece of scrap metal that I've been using for years. I don't even know what it's from. You can see the end's been bashed in pretty good there. But they do make separation tools. Auto Body Tool Mart sells them. I forget what they're called, but I should buy one of those. I just haven't done it. You get the idea. I'm just going to keep on piecing it off in the front. It's going to be kind of hard to have the camera set up and show you what I'm doing. So I'm going to work on getting the rest of that out. It appears that they may not have even, yeah, they didn't even remove the whole part of the original wheelhouse. there's still a flange here from when they cut it off. I'll have to see what I can do with that, whether I can leave it or try to remove it. I thought I would show you a few things. Here's the center section that was attached, welded on the outside. I did break loose a weld, a little bit more of a weld up here, and when I cut off the line on the front edge, this thing just fell out. You can see no welds at all on that perimeter. They tried to do something there from the inside, but that's just pointless. And you can tell this is an older patch panel. It's lighter. It's very, very light in comparison to the stuff that I'm using right now. And even the stamping is a little bit different with that crimped edge. You compare that to this one, and like I said, this metal a lot thicker and just a cleaner stamping. As I go further ahead, I did cut out this forward section, and I cut it here just above the rocker panel, and I'll still have to work on getting the rest of that loose, and that'll be a matter of just getting the grinder in there and doing the same thing I did in the back and just separating that. I still haven't determined yet whether I'm going to use or leave what's left of that flange in there. I know when I've worked on these before, if you go back to the Mystique one, the welding that they did on this was kind of like a roll welder. It wasn't a spot welder, and it makes it very difficult to get that apart. So I may just clean that up and leave it alone and have a better look at it, of course, once I get everything else out of the way. Down here there is a piece, this runs over, and it's kind of hard to tell. Maybe I'll get some better lighting in here, but there's a flange. If you look at this new piece, so you can see the flange sticking out. And so I've got to get that piece also out of the way, and I'll have to work on that some more. Alright, I wanted to show you these welds that I was talking about, like a stitch weld. Maybe you can see the pattern there. There's actually 2 rows. It's kind of like a, I don't know, I call it a stitch weld. You can see the little dimples. Hopefully you can see them. So it was on like like some sort of a roller with little teeth on it, compressing that together. So I'm not going to remove that. That would take too much work, and it's not going anywhere. The thickness of the material is minimal, and so when I get the new outer in place, it won't affect really anything. Down here in the front section, there is no remnant of the inner that I can see, because this is the inner panel here for the structure behind the window, and so there's no overlap. Down here, this pocket, I may end up cutting off the face or the end of the rocker panel here and just making a new piece, because there's some damage, as you can see there. So I'll have to fix it anyway, and the piece that's left in there is kind of hard to get out. And so, like I said, I may just cut that off and just fabricate a new piece and weld it in. The rest of it is okay. It's solid here. There's a little hole there. That was an old spot weld, and I'll weld that shut prior to final fitment of the outer wheelhouse. Everything else up here I've straightened out. You know, this metal is very thin, so it bends pretty easy, and everything else is in place. So at this point, I'm going to cut off the rest of this extension. It doesn't do me any good to have it there, and I need to get that out of the way anyway. So that'll be my next piece to cut off. Now if you notice, I didn't cut all the way back into this piece. I wanted to show you that. That's the rear piece here. I would have cut into that and damaged it. And I really just need to break loose these welds right here and separate this piece as best I can. So if you look at it from the other side, you get an idea. There's a flange here that is part of this rear panel, or rear bracing, I should say, maybe. And so I don't want to damage that. Alright, so I have that out of the way. But what I decided to do, I didn't like the way that looked. That metal's pretty ugly. A couple layers of really poorly welded, ugly stuff there. So I just cut it off. And what I'll do is I'll replicate that piece. Sorry, I'll replicate that piece and just, you know, attach it back in there. No problem, no big deal. At this point, I'm going to work on getting the rest of this bottom edge of what's left of the tail panel off. Also, this piece, as I mentioned before. And I'm trying to decide what I'll do over here, because ultimately I'm going to get to the point where I want to be able to mock the tail panel in place with the wheelhouse and the quarter panel all on the driver's side. I'm not worried about the passenger side just yet, but I want to be able to mock all those pieces. So in order to get that tail panel on, I need to have all this cleaned up, and that'll involve removing some of this edge of the old or the passenger side quarter panel. So I'm going to get these cleaned up here, this lower section, like I said, and move on from there. And again, that's going to involve similar to what I did on the wheelhouse. I will find the welds here and grind the top of the welds off, and then separate this piece of metal and get it out of the way. So this is going to be the end of this video. This video is focused on removal of sheet metal and cleaning up the areas that would be, you know, later used to attach the new sheet metal. And so this is just kind of a teaser to show you what's coming in the next video. As you can see, I just have things kind of clamped in place. There's still some fitment to do. This isn't fitting the way it should because that panel is too long at this point or needs some trimming. And when that panel is not in there, the tail panel fits nice and snug. You can see the wheelhouse fits okay. And I want to show you this. That was in the rocker panel. And I just happened, you know, I figured I'd better take a look. And I tried blowing it out with my long air gun, but it wouldn't work. I actually had to get a rod with a hook on the end of it to clean that stuff out. So anytime you're doing stuff like this, take a look and make sure there's nothing in your, you know, any kind of panels, because they will make a nest. I'll go into more detail with the fitment of these pieces, and of course the quarter panel as well. But that's it for this video. So stay tuned. Part 2 of this is coming pretty soon. I will continue working on this, and I'm looking forward to it. I think it's looking pretty good already, and I'm very excited to make some progress on the 68. And if you haven't noticed, if I haven't said it before, we decided to name this car Jade, and all the videos will be tagged with Jade at this point. And in fact, the playlist says Jade on it as well. So have a look, and as usual, thanks for watching.